Voting isn't just going to the polls on election day anymore. Options like early voting, mail-in voting, and ballot drop boxes are available to more voters and are growing in popularity.
How to Vote, a tool created by Democracy Works, breaks down the options your state offers for casting a ballot, empowering you to decide when and where to vote.
Democracy works best when we all vote, but misinformation and confusion about election procedures have resulted in low voter turnout. How to Vote, a tool created by Democracy Works, takes the guesswork out of the voting process.
It's easy to use, and it helps folks from all over the country overcome many of the process barriers to voting.
Democracy Works is committed to helping you vote no matter what. Their tool, How to Vote, does just that.
You can use the tool to sign up for election reminders.
See what's on your ballot.
Get step-by-step assistance requesting your mail ballot.
Explore your options for returning your voted mail ballot.
Check your voter registration status.
Find your polling site.
And make sure that you have the appropriate ID.
Decide when and where you'll vote this year at howto.vote.
Hi, I'm Parker, and I use they, them pronouns.
Hi there, I'm Mike, and I use he, him pronouns.
And welcome to the Graphic Novel Podcast.
Welcome once again. Here we have a show where we discuss graphic novels, zines, and other comics. We throw in a bit of real life.
Sometimes we talk about queer issues, race issues, death, relationships.
And every Friday we bring you a brand new episode. If you like the show, please give us 5 stars, and at the minimum, you can check us out on Spotify, YouTube, any other place that you want to review us or just, give us stars or any great rating.
Just throw those stars out there for us.
Throw them, please.
We love them. Make sure that you subscribe so that every week, as soon as our podcast goes live, it's going to show up right up in your feed and wait for you to listen.
You can interact with us on Twitter, Facebook, and Insta. And if you want to leave us a voice message that we can play on the air, visit us at anchor.fm/graphic novel podcast.
Most importantly, the best thing you can do to help us grow this podcast is to share it with your friends.
That's right. And welcome to another show. How's it going, Parker?
We're glad you're here. It's good. It's good. How are you doing?
I'm good. We are face painted today.
We are face painted. It feels so, I don't know.
Summery, like going to a
yeah, it's like a
fair thing.
Festival, the children's festival stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
Since we don't get to do those things this year.
No,
just bring them home.
Yeah, we don't get to do a lot of things this year. Staying alive is our main objective this year.
Yeah.
I think that's for most people too.
Well, I don't know about most, but
staying alive?
The smart ones.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there are some people that staying alive is not. No. Like the Lieutenant Governor of Texas, who's willing to die. So, good luck. Anyhow, yeah, it's great weather here in the Northwest.
Yeah, summer has arrived.
Summer is here. It's beautiful out.
I'm crying because it's too hot.
Everything is going great.
Not really.
For the most part. And, we've got a good show. We've got a very deep, heavy book to go through today. With a lot of history again that
nobody's ever taught.
Yes, nobody's taught. You generally don't hear anything about this kind of stuff. So,
I mean, I did, but
well, you're from the Northwest, so I think you heard a little bit different stuff. I remember.
It's so weird that. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, I was just gonna say. I mean, the book is "Paying the Land" by Joe Sacco, and it's about Native Indigenous people of Canada. And here you learn there's a ton of Native Americans here in the Northwest, and there's not a ton back in Western New York, but it was obviously.
But like all of your street names are named out, so like it exists. You see.
Well, we learned
that
we learned about it in elementary school. You learn about
names
it.
And stuff. I mean, you don't really. You learn that Native people existed.
Yes.
You don't learn really anything about them or their culture or anything.
No.
Just that they existed.
Yeah. So
Exist. I mean, they didn't exist
Yeah.
previously. They still do.
So that's what we're going to get into today, and it's going to be an interesting talk about the Indigenous people of Canada.
Although white people have worked very hard to try and erase them.
As with much history, yes, they've done a good job of that.
Us colonizers.
Yep. All right. So this week, let's get to the other stuff. All right. So Parker, we've had a few in the past, but we're actually going to call out a few people who've left us some comments online. First of all, on Instagram, Danny_Chen said, "So glad to randomly find a queer graphic novel podcast, which I've craving for." So
Yeah.
we appreciate that. It was on The Wilds, which was a real good book. And again,
I love that book.
Again, it's apropos for the current times.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, I don't know if I find it. I think we talked about it on the podcast, so it's not important. But yeah, it's a good book.
And over on YouTube, under the Genderqueer book, we had Beverly Hills say, "Love your podcast. If you can, try to discuss Graphic Proust by Stéphane Huet, In Search of Lost Time graphic version." So I was looking at that. I think there's two parts. It's a part 1 and a part 2. So we're going to look into that. Thanks for the comments.
And thank you both for commenting. We appreciate
that.
you listening.
Definitely. Now, more stuff going on. So first off, we've got the Watchmen. We discussed this before. Watchmen. Did we discuss the show? We haven't finished the show.
It might have been in a take that we left on the floor.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember.
Watchmen. I remember back in the 90s reading it. My friend Steve that we did Comics TV with.
You were a little slow there.
I know. I didn't think about it. But anyhow, we did.
You know why I was laughing, though?
Because I talked about the 90s.
Because you said back in the 90s.
Back in the olden days.
No. Come
What?
on. I can't sing it.
Oh. How does it go? Do the start.
Back in the 90s, I was on
a very famous
TV show.
All right. Anyhow, so back in the 90s, BoJack. I read Watchmen. Steve used to work for a printer, a major printer, that they eventually shut their plant down there in Buffalo. But they used to print graphic novels, and Steve at one point was working I
don't think you ever told me this.
Yeah, they printed a lot of stuff for DC, and they used to toss the stuff in the garbage. Like they must have been returns, and they would just toss them like bins full of books.
Really?
And Steve would come home with handfuls.
Of course he would.
Books like. So I remember reading Watchmen. Don't remember a lot about it, honestly. But then there was a movie that I haven't seen and a TV show on HBO, which not everybody's thrilled with. And apparently there's going to be a new spin-off comic, which again, people are not happy with. They think that it should be left alone. What it was what it was.
Well, it's like the pure, I mean, that happens in anything that you have fans of. You know, they want that pure.
Yeah.
Everything needs to stick to the original line.
I think what we talked about when we talked about Watchmen was the Tulsa massacre. I think we did talk about that. Now I don't know if it made it on the air again.
Oops, I'm scratching my face.
But yeah, that's what the creators of the HBO show. No, the creators of the HBO show decided to focus it that way. It's not the same as the original book.
So the original book doesn't talk about the Tulsa massacre?
I don't believe. I was reading something here. But
because that's the opening scene, right?
Yes, they decided to focus on that.
Okay.
So this is from Variety. Watchmen cast and filmmakers on police racism in the Tulsa massacre, and they did an online Zoom thing with a Zoom meeting, I guess, interview type thing, and they talked about all these things. And the show's main hero, Sister Knight, is a direct descendant of a survivor of the very real 1921 massacre of Tulsa neighborhood known as Black Wall Street. And the one Damon Lindelof, the executive producer and co-creator, decided that when they read about this, they decided that and shocked that they didn't know about it because, of course, nobody tells you things about this. he decided to make the event the centerpiece of his show.
Mm.
So that's how it worked. And a lot of people that didn't even know, they said that after it happened, after it aired, there was it seemed like an not insurgent, a lot of Google searches for it. First of all, people see if it was real, and then people, well, because you don't know.
Wow.
And so a lot of people were looking.
Yeah, but fuck, that's so
and now there's
sad.
Now there are,
Again, talking about our history that we know nothing about.
There are 3 separate documentary projects about the massacre in the works now. They've been announced. So one of the people on there said that I was so horrified that I'd never heard of it. It was just astonishing to me that something like this could have happened so recently, and we're not taught that in school. Even somebody who grew up in Tulsa said that he only really understood the full scope of the event when he was in his 20s.
Wow.
It was virtually concealed in terms of the real lethality of it.
Mom.
When I was growing up in the late 70s, early 80s, nobody wanted to advertise that we had this in Tulsa's history. So it was simply referred to, and so it was referred to simply as, yes, there was a race riot. It wasn't called a race massacre. It was called a race riot.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's
oh my god.
Yeah, so that was in Variety. Then we've got let's see what else we got here.
Gotta love that dead air.
DC. Interesting. DC, You Brought Me to the Ocean. Alex Sanchez, author of the prose novel series Rainbow Boys, reimagined the origin story of DC's Aqualad, aka Jackson Hyde, in a recently released original graphic novel called You Brought Me to the Ocean. He was once a sidekick of Aquaman. He is reimagined here by Sanchez and artist Julie Moreau in his own story with his own agency and identity. And basically what it is Sanchez said that it's a story of a man coming out. They changed it so he's coming out. And Sanchez says he put some of his own history in there.
No.
Yeah. He says, from the start, DC encouraged me to pick and choose elements from previous versions of Aqualad and feel free to make the story my own. In this incarnation, he escapes this, grows up in Silver City, New Mexico. He liked the idea of a teen with powers over water growing up in one of the driest places in the U.S., far from the ocean. And the small town setting raised the stakes for his superpowers being discovered. But then he has a crush on a girl in the story, but then he's, figures out how to come out to himself and the people around him. And so it sounds like a cool, and I think it's a YA geared graphic novel. So that sounds like a cool book.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I had one more, but I think I'd lost it. Cancel. Oh, that was that one. I already have that. Got like 100 pages here. And last but not least, we have, so again, back in the 90s, used to read Usagi Yojimbo, which was Samurai Rabbit. And Samurai Rabbit, the Usagi Chronicles, is coming from Netflix. It's a tune based on Stan Sakai's comic books. So Netflix is doing a full animated series. And apparently it's the first one based on this. And it's a long-running comic book. I think it's still running. So it's been 20-some years that it's been going.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And some good stuff. So there's a lot of good stuff going on and coming out. All right, you ready?
Ready, Freddy.
It's that time.
The Denny have lived in the vast Mackenzie River Valley since time immemorial, but to their account. To the Denny, the land owns them, not the other way around. It is central to their livelihood and their very way of being. But the subarctic Canadian Northwest Territories are also home to valuable natural resources, including oil, gas, and diamonds. With mining came jobs and investment, but also road building, pipelines, and toxic waste, which scarred the landscape, and alcohol, drugs, and debt, which deformed a way of life. In Paying the Land, Joe Sacco travels the frozen north to reveal a people struggling with the ambiguous wages of development and incalculable toll of pitiless colonial legacy. Against a vast and gorgeous landscape that dwarfs all human scale, Paying the Land lends an ear to trappers and chiefs, activists and priests, telling a sweeping story about money, dependency, loss, and culture, with stunning visual detail by one of the greatest comics reporters alive.
Joe Sacco is a Maltese-American cartoonist and journalist. He is best known for his comics journalism, in particular the books Palestine, Footnotes in Gaza, on Israeli-Palestinian relations, and Safe Area Gorazd, and The Fixer on the Bosnian War. And of course, this brand new book, which just came out a week ago, Paying the Land. His journalism is something that we haven't seen much in. And you see some of that in Art Spiegelman's Mouse. He had done research, especially when he went for part 2. He had gone overseas, and he had visited some of the places that his parents had been, and got more information, and he got some of that. But Joe Sacco, and it's interesting. He makes himself part of the story too. He pictures himself, and is it Sarah who he's with? Shauna, who he's with traveling throughout this Northwest Territory in Canada, and he's only part of it because he's like a reporter. So I guess in that way, and in some parts he narrates things, but he's kind of just like a reporter. And in any good interview, you would hear the reporter, asking questions and stuff like that. And it's kind of like that.
Right.
And the detail in the artwork.
The artwork is amazing. It's all black and white.
It's a big book. This is a big, thick
200
big, thick book.
50 pages? 264 pages.
Big, thick book. Every page from one end to the other. There's a lot of bleeding pages that it goes all the way to the edge of the paper.
Oh, yeah.
And his detail is just astounding, amazing, so beautiful. The way he depicts people and their faces, and he knows how they're cartoon characters. I mean, without a doubt, it's a comic book, but he makes it so realistic and so just absolutely stunning.
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of these you feel like you're looking at a photograph.
Scenery and details. I mean, it's we talk about how some people, and everybody's got different styles. He chooses to do extensive, excruciating detail on scenery and people and backgrounds and clothing and everything. It's just so amazing. The story is something that is heartbreaking,
absolutely,
and horrible, and it just reminds me so much of what's gone on in the United States too, not just with the Native Americans here, but also with the Black community too. I see some correlations with the way I think they've been treated by the country itself.
For a group of people who were forcibly brought here, brought to the United States, and forced to labor and beaten and and then to continually years and years later. I mean, slavery ended not that long ago, honestly, in our history, but they're still looked down on, and it's the same way with the Dene people. They when they talk about going back to school, or not going back to school, when they talk about being sent to school, being forced into residential school, I think is what they call it, which is is a boarding school.
Well, I mean, that's when I first read that, I don't think I ever heard anything about that. You said that you knew about that in the United States.
Yes.
I don't think I ever heard about that. We obviously learned different stuff.
And it wasn't, I didn't learn it in school. Okay. That wasn't ever something I learned in school. My father had taken Native history classes when he was in college, and so it was something I think that was important to him. My dad connects to nature a lot, And so, and that has a lot to do with Native culture is a lot about connecting to the land.
Oh, without a doubt.
And so I think that he kind of was drawn to the history in that way. I mean, my dad loves history no matter what. But
so did he discuss?
So yes,
Okay.
those were the kinds of things that he would discuss with us. I don't remember hearing the details, but I know I do remember my dad talking about Native American stuff with us a lot.
Yeah. See, again, well, you were lucky in that aspect. I didn't know any of that stuff, and until I read this, I'm like, what? They would scoop them up and say. I mean, first off, these were people that lived off the land. A lot of them, it was about salmon fishing and beaver pelts, because they were the main source of pelts that were going overseas, like the Bay Company, right?
Hudson Bay Company.
Bay Company would buy probably thousands and thousands of these, and they were being shipped like overseas to Europe, where they would make coats and stuff and gloves and whatever they would make out of these, this fur.
Yeah.
And it was for the wealthy people that lived over there.
Right.
And that's how these people made their living. And it was just, they lived off the land. They would go hunting for the beavers, and there was some
and the things that they would hunt for, it wasn't, they weren't doing it to make money. It was in the beginning. I mean, obviously in the beginning, but it started out right as that's just what you did. You ate the food, you used the fur.
Oh yeah.
You used the hide. They used every part
about the fish, how they would catch all these fish, and then they dry all these fish, and then it would be food for the winter and for the dogs, for the dog sleds and stuff too. Yeah,
because that's how they got around.
Yeah,
and because as winter went on, the animals were harder to find. Well, at least you had some saved up from your summer hunting.
Yeah. So I mean, so the people, they lived off the land. That's how they did it. They just lived off the land, and they would travel. A lot of them didn't stay in one place. They moved. They would congregate back in certain areas, like in the fall, and all these different groups would meet back together and like have a big get together.
Right.
But then they'd all go their own ways again. It was just like short time that they'd spend together. But families would go out and do their thing for the winter and all the hunting seasons and all that.
Right. And when they came together, they would do things like weddings and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. The one drawing that he had, it showed like a traditional wedding gown, which I thought was kind of, I mean, you can't see the color of it or anything.
Right.
So I don't know if it was a white like ball gown, but that's what it kind of looked like. And I was interested in if he'd like seen photographs and stuff, because it seemed like, I mean,
he did say that some people lent him photos that he was able to get
a lot of these drawings look like they are, I mean, they look like photographs. It's so amazing.
Yeah. And as a journalist, he probably searched and found old photos that he used as reference for some things. But yeah, so I mean,
it wasn't like when you're reading this, I mean, I don't know. It seems to me like you think about this as like, oh, wait, way back. But the one person he's interviewing, I would say looks, I don't know, 70s maybe. And he's talking about being born in the canoe that they built. And being raised in the community where they were they were living off the land. They were, it wasn't like it was so many years ago. Like this is a current generation that's still living, and when he was raised in a way that was still culturally significant. So such a short time ago. You know what I'm trying to say?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like my words aren't coming out right.
No, I get what you're saying.
Like when I think about like what has been lost, I think about it like it was so long ago, but it really wasn't. What was that?
I'm trying to get away from the microphone. I took a drink and it made me cough.
It made it worse.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But
anyway.
No, I get it. So I mean, that's how it starts. It's like he's interviewing people, and they're talking about their way of life and how they grew up, and it was just they were part of the land. And then suddenly, the government decides that we're coming to take your kids, and we're going to make them go to school. We're going to force them to go to school. And sometimes it was hundreds
I mean,
and
it wasn't-
hundreds of miles away.
You kind of skipped over a little bit there, but
what?
But yeah, well, because when the first thing that started happening is that the colonizers came in and said, "Oh, we're gonna start." They wanted the resources that were on their land.
Yes.
And to the Dene people, it was like, well, it's not our land. Like, we can't give you something that doesn't
we don't
belong to us.
Physically own it. We don't have deeds to the land that we've lived on for generations.
Right. And I think to the white people, they're like, oh, cool, that's mine now. I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
And there was very little consideration for what it would mean for the environment.
Yes, they didn't care about that at all.
Exactly.
It was about how many pelts can we get shipped over to Europe, or gold, how much gold can we extract, or how much lumber, or and any oil, all these different things over the years.
Right. And the key was just the goal there was money, and it was all about money.
Yep.
And that wasn't something that the Dene people had even, like, money wasn't part of their culture. It wasn't about how much money you could make. It was It was about living a good life,
which is living on the land and enjoying life, and just
and then there was an interview with somebody who was like, he was talking about one of the other people that was there, and says he probably doesn't have any money in his bank account, but he goes out and he works the land, and he comes home and he stays busy. He and that is living a good life.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me so sad to think about everything that we stripped away from Native people. Their entire way of life.
But Columbus, he came here and discovered the Americas. You know what I mean? He did. He did not. So, but yes. And the history that young people are taught is just not what history is. Thanksgiving, I think, should be a canceled holiday. Thanksgiving is not what it appears to be. It's a fake holiday. I don't give a shit what they say.
I mean, every holiday is a fake holiday, let's be honest. But I think that, and that's the thing. I don't think that if you ask Native Americans if they thought that Thanksgiving should be canceled, they would say yes.
Okay.
I think it's important, especially as white people, that we recognize, for one, whose land we're on. And recognize the history of the real, Thanksgiving story, because in honesty, like, but
it's not taught. I mean, not
at all.
When our kids are coming out of the school, they've got, cowboys and Indian hats on, or, headdresses on. And it's like, okay, what were you taught?
Cowboy part
No, they have the Indian
headdresses, which is not okay at all.
I mean, because that they're taught that, the Pilgrims sat down with the Indians and they had a good meal and everybody was happy.
And I mean that
I'm sure there were some
true,
of that,
because you even see in the book, like, they just wanted to get along. There wasn't a reason to fight, right? They didn't. Yes. They as long as everybody could be respectful, it wasn't important to fight over the land. Like, everybody has space here, and everybody can live, right? So it's not it wouldn't be surprising to me it's not surprising to me to teach a story in which the Native people were welcoming, because I think a lot of that was teaching these white people how to use the land, but they don't teach the other side of it, which is the problem.
Okay, so but are they supposed to teach kindergartners that?
I think in an age appropriate way, you absolutely can. I don't think you have to say they were murdered.
Right.
But certainly by later elementary school, I think it's important to see that.
And you're right. There's a way to say it, not that, that the white people just kept coming and killing the natives, but maybe that, they weren't respectful of the native cultures.
And they brought disease, and they brought, things that, and guns. I mean, things that weren't ever used. And so, I mean, yeah, there's ways to talk about it age appropriately that we don't talk about.
Well, what you were saying also goes to the current Black Lives Matter and Black people who are saying, we didn't ask you to cancel all of the people that are playing Black characters on on animated shows. And we didn't tell you to take the Golden Girls episode that looks like blackface off. We didn't tell you to do that.
But yeah.
It wasn't exactly, but we didn't tell you to do that. We want you to defund the police and fix the systemic racism
because
problem.
that's white people's like they think
we do that. We did it. Yes,
we can solve this with something simple.
And we'll fix a couple things like that, and the black people will be happy, and we can move on.
Right, and it doesn't like that. That's not what. Yeah.
No, but that's what when you get higher up in TV executives and business executives, it's like we'll send the Black Lives Matter logo out there and say, hey, racial diversity, yay, and then continue to hire white people.
Right.
Yeah, but anyhow, it's this here too with this book that eventually as time's going on, Joe is interviewing a lot of different people, and you're learning the backgrounds, and you're finding out that the country is in Canada. Canada is not absolved of all this. They're not much better than the United States in handling their native affairs.
Oh no! Absolutely.
Although I've heard, I hear more talk of First Nations people in Canada than I do ever of Native American stuff in the United States.
What do you mean?
I don't know. Maybe they are somewhat trying a little harder than the United States to absolve themselves or to fix some of their past wrongs.
Yeah.
I think the United States doesn't care when they carve on a sacred monument the heads of 4 people,
white men,
yeah. over the objections of the natives. And then they have a big celebration there on the 4th of July,
right?
In the middle of a pandemic. I mean, I think that they still in the United States have not learned.
Oh no, we definitely haven't, and we have a long way to come, and which is why it's so infuriating to me when people here are saying, oh well, they have the casinos, so like that solves all the problems. Is well, we let them have casinos and we can't even have them. So.
Right. Well, that's the reparations, right? So.
Right. But yeah, I just the intergenerational trauma too that comes with, and he does talk about that a lot.
Trauma
in the book
abuse,
that comes with.
There was a lot of that too.
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
And
that comes with the schools. Mm-hmm. Well, because so we talked about and he goes into so many details of the history, and I was actually
we didn't even finish the schools.
I know we haven't started the school.
Well, we started.
Really?
I mean, the government said that we're going to come in, we're going to take your kids to school, and we're going to send them far away. And
I
if
think
we
part
don't,
of what it was is that, and part of the reason that some of them. It seems like we're okay with it because they wanted their children to have an education, because I think that they must have recognized that change was happening.
Right. Some people did. Yes.
And they maybe didn't want their kids to be
left
behind.
They also couldn't afford to go to jail or anything because they were threatened with.
Well, that was the other thing. They were set
arrested
fines and exactly.
Stuff,
exactly. But I think in the beginning hearing, okay, we're going to educate your children is different than what actually happened, because they educated them on how to be white.
They educated them in Catholic schools.
Oh, yes. And that was the other thing. In Catholic schools.
Yes. To strip them of their native heritage.
Literally strip them.
And make them white.
Native people are very, their hair is very important to them.
Oh, yes.
And so one of the first things they do, shave their heads.
Yep. So you take that away, and that demeans them and makes them all the same. And they're no longer, they're no longer the native people anymore. Now they're white people now. And then they could start, they would beat them or smack them when they'd speak in their foreign,
not foreign,
not
in their
foreign,
native language.
Foreign, yes,
their first language,
to the Catholics. But
right.
But
yes, you're right. He calls it foreign in the book, because to the Catholics it's foreign. Yeah.
Yes,
okay,
but yes, it was their native language.
Yes,
but yes, they would, and eventually some people said, eventually it's just like, you know what, it's easier just to stop doing that
than get
hit or lose meals or all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You'd lose meals. Get punished, beaten.
Yep.
I mean, she talks, the one, I wish I could remember the names better, but the one woman said that she she was very stubborn, and
Mhm.
the nun took her back into her room and started spanking her, and just beating on. I shouldn't say spanking, because it was beating. She was beating her, and people don't view spanking as beating, even though it is. But so she was beating her, and she's like, I was stubborn. I was not going to cry. And then I realized she wasn't going to stop until I cried. So I started crying just to make it end. And it's like,
the one woman too, as a child, realized that her and her younger brother were going to be separated. So that year, she played dumb. So they kept her back, and then she was able to stay with her younger brother. She did that on purpose to protect him, so they weren't separated. And they did that a lot. They separated families on purpose. They sent them to all different schools all over the Northwest Territory there. And I mean, what the fuck, man? And
just absolute. Well, because they were less than human, so it doesn't matter if they smack them and hit them and beat them and everything else, because they aren't human, right? Like, and I don't. And did we talk about? I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago on the show, that there's doctors even today who think that like black people don't feel pain in the same way, and it's like, I don't understand how anybody could think that was okay, that what they were doing was okay, ever.
Well, I know the one man says that some of them became Catholics because they were forced to it, and eventually they became Catholics, and they still are Catholic because, like, even the one man says they have similar beliefs,
right?
And he couldn't discount the one,
right?
Even though he was forced to have to learn it,
right?
So they kind of believe both of their own native customs and beliefs along with the Catholicism,
right?
But I mean, there's just so much. We could probably talk about this for a long time, but there's a lot of other things. Eventually, a lot of like mining and oil drilling comes into play, and everybody wants a piece of that pie. It brings in high, good paying jobs, and a lot of logging too. And, And a lot of times, the natives would find jobs. They'd get jobs and they'd get good pay. But when that stuff would dry up, then this town all of a sudden is gone, and all these people are gone.
Yeah.
And now you've got a town that had been built up for all of this work and all these people, and now there's nothing left. And then you had these different what do you call them? Different groups of native indigenous people that were all kind of fighting over the same area. Some of that tracked into BC, British Columbia, that they were all kind of fighting over that area because they all wanted. They were trying to set up boundary lines. Remember that?
Right. That was toward the end of the book.
Yeah, but there was a bunch of different things that happened, and just hearing a lot of these people's stories, it was just, some of it was heartbreaking, and then
a lot of it was heartbreaking.
And in a lot of places, alcohol was illegal, and people would bootleg it in.
Yeah.
And alcoholism became a huge thing, and people just, I mean, that's a common thing that people just generally say about Native Americans, that they're alcoholics, and I think a lot of it stems from this. They were just, a lot of times they had nothing else because they had lost all of their original customs and everything, and they became white,
And he does touch on on it in the book too, because of the trauma. People, you grew up your whole life, you're ripped away from your family, you're ripped away from your parents, you go to this place, you're beaten. Sometimes they didn't get to come home for summer or winter break. They didn't ever get to go home and to even get a few months in their culture. So experiencing time with their family, all that, for years at a time. And so how do you combat that when, I mean, especially mental health is not something that's ever really been still today looked upon as a part of our health. And I think that a lot of that was the reason that a lot of them turned to alcohol,
and drugs too. That became a big problem.
Yeah, because you just have to try and get it out of your head.
Yes,
you have to try and feel better, like feel good. And then you get drunk, and then, you know, you also are repeating those patterns. A lot of time there was abuse for generations.
Yep.
And now we have a third generation who talks about, you know, their parents abusing them, and that's just the way that it was, because you know, they have their own trauma that they're dealing with. And I think intergenerational trauma is a huge thing, and I was really glad that he touched on it too, because it's not like you can solve the problem by helping, you know, even if we, you know, paid millions of dollars to the generation that the last generation that went to residential schools, and, you know, gave them I mean, in Canada it's not an issue, gave them full health care because they have health care there. Universal health care.
They didn't get into the 60s, so it's not like been forever.
I know, but I'm saying, like, you know, if we did everything to just make their lives as easy as possible to try and pay back, it still doesn't cure that intergenerational trauma, because that trauma of taking their culture from them can never really be healed, especially not in one generation. That's why, like, when they talk about that was the other thing I found really interesting, was the differences in opinion. Like, there were some Native people who were like, yeah, let's get all the oil out of here, like. And most of them had the caveat that they want to make sure that the environment is, you know, do it in an environmentally appropriate way.
But yes, if you're going to come into this area and you know, set up oil rigs and stuff, we want to make money off of it. Let's just do it so it does the least damage to the environment, because our people have no jobs in this area. You know, they're not all out fishing anymore. So, you know, what else can they do? So they all try to get part of that.
Well, I mean, some of them were like, no, I don't want them drilling. We don't know what these chemicals are that they're pumping into the ground. It's got to come up somewhere. You know, you can't just shove all these chemicals into the ground and just be done with it. Like, every action has a reaction, you know? You know, so I think that I thought that was interesting to see the huge the huge difference in opinions there. And it also went to the welfare part as well. Some one of the chiefs, in fact, that Joe talked to didn't approve of welfare. You know, people living off of welfare, his people living off of welfare, essentially. And some people did echo that as well, because they take their welfare and they go buy beer with it. And so I think, you know, part of it is just that Canada thinks you know, whatever, Canada thinks that throwing money at the problem is going to make it go away. You know, they're not giving all the support needed in order to help right their wrongs. I think, as we all know, money doesn't solve everything, and that's just their way of combating righting their wrongs. And I have no problem with them living off of welfare. I don't, you know, honestly, I don't disagree with making sure that they have. I mean, I'm all for for paying everybody a living wage every month.
Universal basic income.
Yeah, there's the and so that part of it I don't. But, you know, if you gave them also the ability to, you know, have mental health counseling, have the culture, have their elders talk about or have something put together where you follow their culture and help with. I know several of the people that he talked to say that they went to rehab. And one person specifically talked about like a spiritual rehabilitation.
Was that the one about the son, where he did it for his son? Because the one said he finally got clean because he had a son and he wanted to be able to spend some time with him and didn't want his son to end up like he had done.
I think that was a
different one.
He was also one of the ones that had said he had gone to rehab. But the one I'm thinking of, he had said he went and like sat in the steam tent and and went and lived on the land for some time. And they talked the bush. They call it the bush. They lived in the bush. So I don't remember if I'm confusing or putting multiple stories.
There's a lot of people that he speaks with. So
there are a lot of people, and it's so I'm gonna keep rereading this.
Yeah.
Because you can't possibly absorb everything at once.
No.
And just looking over and over all the details of the art too. He's a fabulous artist. We talked about that before, but recognizing where all this pain comes from, and doing our part to help support bringing that culture back, and helping Indigenous people any way that we can.
Well, and that's the thing. I know when I was first reading the book and I was telling you about it, we were discussing, should a white man like Joe Sacco be the person telling this story? And the more I read, in my opinion, I'm like, I think this is how the story gets out, is somebody like him who has a platform, who can do this and just depict this in an amazing way that'll appeal to a different audience.
And what was fascinating to me was they trusted him.
Yeah.
They didn't know him. He was a stranger, and he's a white guy, and you don't know that you can trust somebody, but they trusted him to tell their story, and I thought that was really
important,
really brave of them to be willing to put their story out there and to put it in the hands of somebody who, you don't know what he's going to do with it, but I think he did a fabulous job. There's so many things that I want to talk about, and we just, we could probably have a 3-hour-long show talking about all the details and all the things that are so important to talk about. So please head out and by Paying the Land, Joe Sacco. It's an amazing part of our history.
It's from Henry Holt Books. Thank you to Henry Holt for sending this copy for review.
I'm extremely happy with it. I'm gonna read it again and again because it's just his art. I can't say enough about it. It's just so beautiful. Absolutely.
But until next time, my name is Mike,
and I'm Parker.
Thanks for listening to
the Graphic Novel Podcast.